So when you think about what makes a great writer, what comes to mind? We usually picture someone with this incredibly vibrant, almost cinematic inner world, right? But what if that's not the whole story? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty wild idea, that a writer's biggest strength might actually come from an imagination that sees nothing at all.
Yeah, this is the classic kind of romantic image of an author we all have. Totally lost in the story they're creating. They can literally see the characters, they can hear their voices, walk through these worlds they're building, all of it playing out right inside their head. This is pretty much the foundation of how we've always thought about creativity.
Okay, but what if that inner movie screen was just blank? Seriously, imagine a writer who can't picture their own characters or the settings they're describing. I know, it sounds like a massive, crippling limitation, but as we're about to find out, it might just be their secret weapon.
So this seemingly impossible scenario actually leads us to a fascinating neurological condition, and it's one that completely challenges our basic assumptions about what it even means to be creative.
The condition is called aphantasia. Now, it's not a disorder, it's just a different way of experiencing the world. For someone with aphantasia, if you say, picture an apple, they don't see an image. Instead, they access the concept of an apple. They know its red, they know its taste, its texture, but they never actually see it in their mind.
So the immediate challenge seems pretty obvious, right? I mean, how can you describe a sunset you can't see? How do you build a whole fantasy world you can't even visualize? For a writer, this would seem like an impossible hurdle to overcome. To really understand how this works, we first need to shift our focus a little bit. Let's step away from writing and look at reading, because how a person takes in stories tells you a whole lot about how they might create them.
And this really highlights a huge difference in how people experience a book. For most of us, getting lost in a story means we're caught in a visual spell, just totally immersed in all the sensory details. But for a reader with aphantasia, the whole experience is about discovering the truths. It's about understanding the concepts, the characters' motivations, and the deep structure of the story, all without that visual filter.
And this, right here, is where the narrative completely flips. What seems like a weakness is actually a remarkable strength. This different way of processing information creates a super powerful analytical advantage.
See, without the distraction of all that vivid mental imagery, the mind is free to focus on something else entirely: analysis, dissection, and deconstruction. It's kind of like having a built-in editor's eye, one that's constantly scanning the mechanics and the blueprints of the story.
Let's just break this down. First, without a mental movie constantly running, the mind isn't getting sidetracked by all the vivid details. This allows for a much deeper focus on the story's bones, its structure, its logic, and its patterns. And because of that, the writer is way better at spotting those hidden issues, like plot holes or subtle character flaws that a visual thinker might just gloss right over.
In this analytical approach gives them some really tangible skills. A writer with this kind of mind is fantastic at pinpointing logical flaws in a plot. They naturally zoom in on a character's motivation, the why behind their actions, instead of just what they look like. They can more easily pull out the deep underlying themes, and they're often much better at seeing the foundational assumptions inside a text, just by analyzing its patterns, not just its flashy surface story.
So, what does this all mean for how we understand creativity itself? Well, it means we need to start thinking a whole lot bigger.
Here's the bottom line. Creativity isn't just one thing. It's not a single pathway that demands a technicolor inner world. Real creative insight can also come from a deep analytical understanding, from the ability to see the connections, the structures, and the patterns that the rest of us might miss while we're lost in that visual spell.
And that leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about for our own minds. Is the deepest kind of insight found in the pictures we create in our heads, or in the patterns we're able to recognize in the world all around us? The answer, it seems, isn't so black and white.